There are lots of different reasons that people enjoy model railroading. As I've said in the past, for me, one of the things I enjoy most is switching operations. But I also really like watching my layout come to life, and that's why I like hosting operating sessions. Hi everybody, I'm Joe Parker of the Pixel Depot, where we cover model railroading, including planning, hints, tips, how-tos, and updates. In this episode, we're going to cover an operating session on my main layout, the Monument City Terminal Division, or the MCTD for short. While I enjoy many of the building tasks involved in the layout, I really enjoy running the layout, and that's why I decided to build the Monument City Terminal Division in stages so that I could get each section to the point of operation, as well as a certain level of completion, before moving on. This video covers the third trick on Wednesday, July 11th, 1984. This is my fourth formal operating session and the first to cover the third trick schedule. So there are still some scheduling issues to work out, some minor gremlins on the layout to discover, and as you'll see, we all make a whole bunch of mistakes, myself included. I did things a little differently for this video than I have in the past for other layout update and overview videos. I didn't plan any of the shots out ahead of time and simply filmed things as my operators did the work. I also used two cameras. One was stationary to view what was going on in Penmary Yard and at the GM plant. I roamed around the room with the other one, which was handheld, and frankly it shows in the footage. Some of the shots are not perfectly in focus, and there's some camera shake and things like that. I really hope you can overlook that in favor of the real-time feel it gives the session record. My operators for the day were my brother Dave and my friend Greg. Dave handled the Penmary duties, which today consisted of most of the Chessie Yard work and the Canton Railroad work. Greg handled the Chessie Road trains and all of the Conrail work. I acted as the dispatcher and sometimes yard master to keep things moving. Just a reminder before we get to the op session, subscribing to the channel helps me out in a whole bunch of ways, so please click on that subscribe button to stay up to date with what I'm doing. Click on the bell so you'll get notified when there's new content available. The session began with the manifest train returning from Bethlehem Steel and heading to the B&O Bayview Yard, which is still represented on the layout by a temporary staging yard. By law, the train can't block the grade crossing for more than 10 minutes, so the power needed to back up to recouple to the train. As you can see, I still have a ton of work to do on scenery, and I need to get rid of that PT Cruiser there. That is definitely an anachronism. I'm still working on getting all of the cars ready and weathered for the layout on the whole, so some of these trains, including this one, are shorter than they will be eventually. I'm also revamping how I identify car types on the car cards, so I've been holding off on putting more cars on the layout because of that too, or at least that's my excuse. Shortly after this train got underway, Dave started work in the yard. I started the session with the Penmary camera in time-lapse mode, and I honestly wish I could say that was on purpose, but that would be a lie. At the same time, the Conrail crew for the Central Soya turn went on duty. This Conrail GP38-2 is one of my favorite locomotives to run. I really like the sound on it. Switching continues at GM, and the Canton Railroad crew does a quick move to prepare for a later train. Meanwhile, the Central Soya crew continues toward Boston Street.
This is switch.
Looks like there's some sort of issue with that staging track. The Conrail locomotive keeps bucking because of a short or something, and I'll need to take a look at that. At Penmary, Dave has pulled the cars from the GM plant and thinks he's ready to spot the incoming cars. Just one problem. He forgot to pull the 86-foot boxcars from track 5, so back he goes. At about the same time, the Bethlehem Steel Manifest approaches Bayview Yard. You might recognize that foam core mock-up. That was the stand-in I used for the American can building on the grunge layout. Once I finished it, the mock-up fit here and broke up the background a little bit. So following the model railroader mantra of waste not, want not, I kept it for now. Back at GM, Dave is getting ready to grab those errant 86-foot cars. This additional move is going to put some pressure on the 1-hour time limit the crew has to switch the plant. Over at Bayview, the yard crew removes the caboose and the cars, placing them in the yard tracks, and allowing the pair of Jeeps to return to Penn Mary. That caboose does not want to cooperate. Looks like there may be a coupler issue. Come back. No one saw that, right? Once those cars and GP40-24120 are in the clear, the road power will be able to deliver the auto rack train to Penn Mary. Right here, is it just me, or does my brother look like he wants everyone to Wang Chung tonight? Just me? Alright, fine. The crew couples the power onto the train and moves slowly out of the yard track, which provides a good opportunity to check out the weathering on these auto racks. The crew backs up to attach their caboose, and then they'll be off. Except that caboose's coupler is still being finicky. You'll notice that the cotton belt auto rack is weathered way more heavily than the others. That's because when I first started rail fanning, I noticed that the Southern Pacific and cotton belt auto racks roaming the rails always seem to be so much more beat up than cars bearing the name of just about any other road. Thus, the rust bucket. The train will approach the yard, crossing South Crescent Street, and then stop. Meanwhile, the Penn Mary crew is finishing up their work at the GM plant. For the Autorack train's crew, there is a problem. Someone left a railbox boxcar in the yard, which is in their way. They'll need to move it before running around their train to shove the racks into the stub-ended Autorack yard. Now they can run around, passing by the Penmary Yard office, where a couple of guys seem to be talking about their next task. Along with following me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, you can also now support me on Patreon. Subscribers can get great exclusive bonuses like behind-the-scenes footage, live streams, and merchandise, including stickers, t-shirts, and maybe even a couple of surprises, so check it out and help support the channel. Doing all this ensures that I can keep providing you with videos just like this one. With the GM job complete, Dave has switched over to work the Canton Railroad transfer. The Canton transfer run heads out of the yard, without its headlight on incidentally, while the road crew that brought the auto racks in takes the empty auto parts cars out. The Canton transfer is taking cars destined for the B&O to the Bayview yard. Oh, and look at that, they figured out they needed to turn the headlight on. The yard crew moves the newly arrived cars to another track, allowing the Canton power to return light. The chassis crew finishes gathering the outgoing cars. We use car cards and waybills on the layout, and here you can see Greg looking through his cards to make sure everything's good. Then he heads out just as the Canton crew returns. One good turn deserves another. Get it? A turn is a job that goes out and back? Ah, forget it. Anyway, this train is now taking cars from the B&O to Canton. On this line, the railroads are still using old transfer rules with no reciprocal agreement. Each railroad must transfer cars to the other road's yard and return light. The crew runs around the train and shoves it into the Canton Railroad yard tracks. A Conrail GP15-1 leads a loaded coal train to consolidated coal. This is another one of those situations where I don't have enough cars ready to prep a full train, so you'll have to use your imagination a bit. Around the same time, a train departs Bayview to deliver the next shipment of auto parts to GM, with more headlight rows. The plant typically runs 3 shifts a day, 5 days a week, and is the subdivision's largest producer of traffic. This being July, and with the plant retooling, the shifts are a little less predictable right now, though. Because of a track problem, and that is that the track is not in place yet, the Conrail train must run around the loop, drop the loaded cars, and then pick up the empties to return, retracing its steps. When the track plan is complete, it would return using trackage rights on chassis rails for some of this trip. Repeating a move the crews do many times during a session, they run around their train to prepare to shove cars into the yard.
Any particular order they need to be dumped in here, or just
so typically so that, well, you dump them however, but when you sort them, the 36 footage should be at the back end.
okay.
The Conrail Jeep 15 prepares for its return trip, pulling the empties through the partially built dumping shed. The road crew delivers the auto parts train. We uncouple cars using skewers. Personally, I've been using them for years, and I find them to be the easiest and most reliable way to uncouple cars. Your mileage may vary. I'm not a fan of magnets and other methods that you don't have complete control over, so I'll likely stick with them. See what I did there? Stick with them? Since the work at the GM plant takes place at the beginning of each trip, the crew generally sorts the cars right away when the train arrives so that they're ready to go when the GM shift changes. Greg wraps up his last run of the day before heading out for a pizza dinner. With the sorting complete, the road crew will pick up the loaded auto racks and return to the yard. But first, they drop the caboose on an empty track in the auto rack yard. Uh-oh, looks like we got a runaway. Hope the conductor's either on the ground or holding on tight. The last task is to pick up that wayward caboose and then head back to the yard. That's the last job of the trip, so the crews will pack up and go home. Incidentally, this may be the last time that the layout runs in this configuration. I'm considering expanding a little more to add some more industries to operate in the near future. So our first attempt at running a third trick op session is in the books. Operating at prototypical speeds, this session lasted about 3 hours. We uncovered some things to look at, and it's clear we need to do a little bit of operator training. As I mentioned, there's still a lot of scenery work to do. I've started working on this corner, which is Eastern Avenue on the layout, and I'll be documenting it for the channel. I hope you'll subscribe so you can join me and watch it take shape. If you have thoughts, suggestions, or questions about this video or the channel, let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video and think that others would as well, click the thumbs up to like it, and please share it with your friends. I'm Joe Parker of the Pixel Depot. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you'll meet me next time in the train room.